America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone, network, and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you. It's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, Mike and Mike reminding you, by the way, you can watch and listen to your favorite games and shows on the ESPN app anytime you want. It's simple, it's easy, it keeps you connected. Take ESPN with you everywhere, anywhere. Download the ESPN app right now. Candidly, I'm not sure why you wouldn't already have done that. I got some tweets here. 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Michael tweets, no problem with Stafford contract. He has helped elevate the Lions from the worst team in the league to a contender who are fun to watch. That's the way I would look at it. That's the way I'd look at it. Now, there's a lot of tweets in here that are disagreeing, Mike. So we got John tweets at me, lifelong Lions fans. I've seen terrible quarterbacks. This guy's 5-46 against winning teams, now eating up cap space for an already bad team.
While I understand where you're coming from and these guys get their money, I understand the other side of it that says, well, wait a minute. If we're going to pay a quarterback that kind of money, we want that quarterback to hopefully lead us to the playoffs, and the quarterback's the most important position on the field. Granted, he has not had a great team around him a lot of times, but he's got a horrible record against winning teams that you have to beat to get where you want to go. So I'm sure there are a lot of Lions fans that will say, you know what, we're willing to start over. We're willing to go back to a younger quarterback, get a younger quarterback, and start again. We've had this one for 8 years. We haven't done a whole lot. Now we've gave him a ton of money that eats up a ton of cap space. So I can see the other side of that because it's not like this isn't Derek Carr where you say, oh, my God, what are you paying that guy the money for? You know, he's just starting. They're just building that team. There are Lions fans who have seen them, been there, done that with this team, and this team's not winning. And so I'm sure, and I can understand that, them saying, you know what? Let's start this over again. We know you have to have a good quarterback to win. Everybody says we have a good quarterback. We're not winning. So let's start this thing again. You know, get a different quarterback in there. You're not paying this kind of money. See what we can build from there. I understand that thought process.
I know, but I completely disagree with it. They were in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They got a terrible call. Otherwise, they probably would have beaten Dallas.
They did.
You're right. Game. They're a bad organization. So you want to start over again with what? Start over again. He's still young enough to be starting over again around him. So, to me, look, you can have your opinion, but if you're down on Matthew Stafford, based upon what most quarterback play is in the National Football League, you're out of your mind.
His rating, quarterback rating of the last 5 years, he was 13th, 9th, 21st, 19th, 22nd.
Yeah, with no running game.
Yeah.
I mean, literally running game.
I get it. He doesn't have a lot around him.
What's the last 100-yard rusher they had?
Yeah, it's been like I think it was.
How long has it been since they've had a running back run for 100 yards in a game?
Been a long time.
I mean, it's been an extraordinary amount of time.
I'm just saying, I can understand Detroit Lions frustrations, fans' frustrations, in saying we've had this guy for a long time, we still haven't won. Let's, and now we're eating up a lot of cap space with this. Some were ready to move on. I get it. I understand. If you choose to keep him, you're going to pay him like that. That's just the way this thing goes. Unless he wants, you want to be a guy that says, I'll take less. And it's a shame we're there where you're in a situation where you can try to maximize what you can make, and now sometimes it's frowned upon because you've had other quarterbacks and really other great players in other sports take less. So some people look at it and say, well, that's exactly what you should do to help the team out. When, again, one of the ideas is when you play well or you're in a position to maximize your money, you should be able to do it.
The last time the Detroit Lions had a running back run for 100 yards in a game was Week 13 of 2013, and it was Reggie Bush. So here's what I would say to all frustrated Lion fans. I get it. Your franchise has been atrocious. It's been a joke. And the best thing you have going for you is your quarterback. That's the best thing the Lions have going for them, and it has been since the minute he got there. So I would say count your lucky stars. You have him and hope that the organization figures out pieces to put around him, because thus far they haven't. That's my opinion. Mike and Mike, let's do In the Zone. It's brought to you by AutoZone. Drive the new Duralast GT brake pads, proven tough from the tracks to the streets and sold only at AutoZone. Get in the zone with AutoZone. Mike, who has been in the zone?
Why don't we go with Corey Kluber from my Cleveland Indians? How about that? Allowed 3 hits in 8 innings. The Indians beat the Yankees 6-2. Since he came back from the DL June 1st, Kluber leads the majors in innings pitched, in ERA, and in strikeouts. Everybody kind of handing Chris Sale the Cy Young.
Yeah.
Keep it on, that race may not be over just yet.
Kluber's a great pitcher.
Yes, he is.
And he certainly has been in the zone of late, and that is brought to you by AutoZone. All right, I can tell you which NFL team has had the worst preseason by far. Don't look at wins and losses.
Ooh.
The only thing that really matters when the preseason is taking place is that at the end of every single play, you just hope everyone stands up and walks back to the huddle without a limp. And for the Baltimore Ravens, that has not been the case. The Ravens yesterday put Albert McClellan on the injured reserve list. He is the 10th player that they have lost for the season.
Yeah, for the season.
Since June 1st. He's got an ACL. He's out for the year. They've lost 10 players for the season since June 1st. That is a mind-boggling average of 1 player every 9 days. Every 9 days since June 1st. And mind you, training camps didn't start till the end of June.
Right.
Preseason games didn't start till the end of July.
No, training camps didn't start till the second or third week in July. No training camp starts in June.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I got my dates wrong.
June
July.
Right.
Of July. So how are these guys getting hurt in June? They just were getting hurt other different
off-season
ways.
program.
Off-season,
you have the OTAs, you have mini camps all the way up till about the second or third week.
Fair enough. My bad. So I misstated my calendar. It's even worse than I thought. So these guys were in the off-season program in June. They start showing up for preseason or for training camp in mid-July to late July. They start playing preseason games basically the beginning of August. And they've lost 1 player for the year for every 9 days since then. That's unimaginable. It's ridiculous.
Every year there seems to be a team that turns into a mash unit, and this year it's the Ravens. We've seen it happen before with injuries, or you'll see it like during the season here. It started happening we started with the date June 1st. But every year, and we saw this last week 3 of preseason, a number of injuries, and we say, oh, my God, more injuries. And if you look back, there was probably the same amount of injuries last year. So what's the answer? I mean, these injuries happen every year, and one team seems to get bit more than others. So what do you do? I mean, so when we start, are we going to start saying something about preseason? Let's remember, like Tavon Young tore his ACL June 1st. They don't have pads on June 1st.
Right.
Dennis Pitta hurt his hip again June 2nd. They don't have pads on June 2nd. One guy retired in this. It was John Urschel. But so some of these guys, they're getting hurt. This latest one, McClellan just mentioned, what did it say? It was torn
ACL.
Torn ACL. But some of these were non-contact drills. Again, even if
this was. Yeah, McClellan injured his knee during a non-contact drill at the end of practice.
End of practice. So, but I'm not sure where we're going with this about – I do think we're going to end up shortening 4 preseason games. I absolutely think that. But remember, players got what they wanted. This is part of what they wanted. Their off-season program doesn't start till the 3rd week of April. Then training camp, they can only do 1 padded practice a day. They can't do 2 a days. And the only 14 padded practices during the regular season. So this is just bad luck, right? Is that what we're saying? I mean,
yeah.
There's no way we can sit there and say, well, my God, they're working too hard, and getting these injuries. This is just a team. One team, sometimes a couple, get bit every year with the injury bug.
Right. It is a sport where injuries are the single biggest deciding factor in success, which is what makes prolonged success so remarkable. And, I'm not trying to make any larger point about the Ravens beyond the fact that this has just been a disastrous few months for their franchise.
It has.
And that doesn't mean they can't overcome it. And as I look through the story, some of these guys, like, as you mentioned, Urschel retired. Another one was suspended for the year for the drug policy. So it wasn't all season-ending injuries. But one way or another, from June 1st until now, they've lost 10 players for the year that they were anticipating having. That's 1 for every 9 days.
That's amazing.
So they've just been decimated.
The best of Mike and Mike.
The worst quarterback competition in the National Football League was settled yesterday. And I want to bring it up if only to make a larger point, and that is the Jets named Josh McCown their starting quarterback, despite the fact that he did not play in either their second or third preseason games. And they were trying to see what they had in Christian Hackenberg, and then he was just unimaginably bad.
He's not good.
And they put Bryce Petty out there, and he played pretty well. Then he got hurt. It looked like seriously hurt. Now, the good news is it doesn't appear as he's that hurt. Mm-hmm. But the point is, then yesterday they announced we're going to play McCown because he gives us the best chance to win, and it's probably the right thing to do. I'm not even talking about that.
Yeah, I get it. I get why they didn't play him and let those other guys play and have that competition, see what you got.
Well, the point is not playing him, even though you knew in your own mind he is most likely going to start week one, I think actually illustrates a larger point, and that is the total meaninglessness now of the preseason games. With the way these teams work in training camp and the way they work around the preseason games, the games themselves have become even less meaningful. There was a time when you would never have said, well, we're not going to play these guys at all. There was a time when in the third preseason game, star players would play well into the third quarter.
Yeah.
You didn't see that this year.
Oh, you saw it in Tennessee. And Mariota was out there into the third quarter.
But
there were some games.
But in a lot of other places, you didn't see it at all. Eli Manning was running to the sideline early in the second quarter of that game, and a lot of others. So I think you are seeing a decreased significance or a decreased emphasis on these preseason
I think
games.
it's because it's an increased emphasis on the practices with other teams. I think that is the way that teams are going to want to go. I think they feel they're getting better work out of that, and then they're going to keep their starters out of harm's way in the preseason games.
Yeah, this was a tweet that I saw from Mark Sessler, who works for the NFL Network, who wrote, no more myth-making about Week 3 of the preseason looming as a critical night. Not in 2017. Half these teams yanking starters a quarter in. And it just made me think about what Chris Collinsworth said when he was on our show last week.
I remember going from, in my rookie year, from that last preseason game to the first regular season game, and all I can think was, it was like somebody hit fast forward on a recorder kind of thing. And these people are out here trying to kill each other. Preseason is a joke. I mean, it just is. God bless them. It's great for the people trying to make their teams.
Yep.
But if you think the veteran players out there are playing the same speed on opening day that they're playing in the preseason, it's just not the case.
Preseason is for the back end of the roster. You go into training camp, basically the coaches know 2/3 of the roster, and then you figure out the rest of it through preseason, and you also try and knock the rust off, get some timing down and that thing, and then depends on if you have a quarterback. The main thing is, do you have a quarterback competition? Do you need to see 2 quarterbacks? Do you need to see 3 quarterbacks? You know, those are the ones where it's more interesting than the others, because how do you divvy up reps? Do you get one behind the first O-line, another behind the first O-line? Other than that, it's get your plays in, get up after every play, get the guys into the game that are trying to make the back end of the roster.
Yeah, so to that point, I saw an enormous amount of criticism of the Jets for not playing McCown, and then all of a sudden he's their starter. And listen, no one is more inclined to want to call out what's going on with them right now than I am. But candidly, I can't complain about that.
No,
because
I wouldn't.
Playing these preseason games, it's so obvious around the league that it's become so meaningless that I can't sit here and say, well, how could you have not played him?
But
in
it wasn't
games?
meaningless to the Jets in the fact that they needed to get Hackenberg out there and get him some reps and get him to play and see what he could do. And unfortunately, you found out about him in things that you didn't like. And but you needed to see some of that.
He has no idea. Meaning, has no idea where the pressure is coming from.
He has trouble. He locks on. He has trouble reading, hanging onto the ball, just locking onto one. I mean, that pick six that Collins had. Oh my Lord! I mean, you just start diagramming that play on what he did wrong that play. Yeah, he struggles, and I mean mightily, to where you just can't trust him on the field.
Yeah. So that isn't even. I was really just trying to make the larger point here, which is that I can't criticize them for not playing the guy who's going to be their starter, because these games are so meaningless. And I was about to say, you know what? Why don't they just get rid of them? That was the thought that I had. And then I came across this tweet. And let's make this Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. It came from Mike Reese, who covers the Patriots for us at ESPN. But he was quote tweeting WBZ in Boston, which is the CBS affiliate in Boston. And this was their tweet. Patriots-Lions on WBZ had 4 times more viewers than Red Sox-Orioles that same night. So those 2 games were on TV at the same time in the Boston market. And 4 times as many people watched this horrendous, ridiculous, dreck preseason football game than watched a regular season baseball of a first-place team with the hated Yankees breathing down their necks in the division. So what does that tell us? It tells us people are still watching these games to at least some degree.
Especially if it's the third game, there's still that thought out there that the starters, they do play more than they normally do. You're exactly right in saying they don't play as long as they used to. But they still play. This is the game they play the most, so that normally is going to be the biggest rated game. Next week's games, you want to talk about ridiculous. You'll get starters that won't even dress for that game.
Yeah, no. The fourth preseason games are so that they're still deciding though. That's the very back end of the roster, right? Yeah. That's like the guys who are going to be running down on kickoff,
and basically a lot of it's been decided. Now what you do is for those guys that aren't going to make the team. This is a game to get a lot of tape. So if you're going to get cut, you have tape that other teams get to see in case because that's what you'll see. Players get picked up. After the cuts. Remember, the cuts got moved. There used to be cuts after this third preseason game. Right. Now they get a whole nother week.
Right.
So the back-end players get more practice, and they'll get another game in, and they'll let them play a lot and let them get on tape to maybe help them get somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Belichick said that he has watched every game that has been played in the preseason this entire preseason.
Yeah.
So he's seen tape or, he's seen these games of all these players because they'll be, to your point, signing guys
absolutely right.
next week that get cut other places.
Right.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Shefty in this hour on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Never a bad time for a little Shefty. We got Stu Gatz later this morning and Paul Feinbaum and Oscar De La Hoya. Golden Boy Promotions. They've got the big fight coming up.
Yes, they do.
We were looking to sort of find the next day's angle on the fight over the weekend, and I think one of the big questions is, that De La Hoya and company were very upset.
Very upset.
That they put this fight this past weekend.
Getting their digs in and their shots in on it, and the fraud that it was, that they thought it was.
And especially that it went right in front of Triple G and Alvarez. But now that it was the success that it was, in I think almost every way, certainly financially, and I think artistically, if you will, it wasn't bad. I think, if anything, it'll help the fight coming up.
I think so as well.
I don't think it'll hurt it.
Let's see if Oscar feels that way as well.
Well, look, the boxing purist may have been put off a tad by what they saw.
Right.
But, again, I don't think they made a mockery of the sport. I really don't.
I don't either.
Going into it, they may have been worried it was going to be that.
And this isn't about boxing fans. Boxing fans are going to want to see the fight. This is about the casual fan and what they can pull in.
Right. So, again, if they're still upset about what happened over the weekend, I'd like to hear what part of it they're upset about. Right. Some other Twitter reaction just to some of the discussion we've had early this morning. Joshua tweets, the Jets would settle for a life-sized cardboard cutout of Chad Pennington at this point. The oft-maligned Chad Pennington, you realize that every year he was healthy as a starting quarterback in the NFL, his team made the playoffs. Happened with the Jets, and it happened with Miami. He just was, unfortunately, a guy who got hurt a lot. Right. But when he was healthy, he was good. I mean, he's the only thing that the Jets have had going on all through these years. Bobby tweets, why doesn't the NFL eliminate preseason and charge admission and televise joint team practices? You know why they don't do that. Because they can't charge admission, because they charge full ticket prices for 2 preseason games, and if you're a season ticket holder, you have to buy them.
That's exactly right.
That's why they don't change
money in their pocket, but I guarantee you coaches like the scrimmages better than the preseason game.
Yeah, and look, and I'll point it out again. I mean, in fairness, Mike Reese tweeted or retweeted WBZ in Boston that the Patriot game was on up against the Red Sox game, and I get it. There are 162 regular season baseball games, but every single one of them is more important than any of the 4 preseason NFL games. And yet the preseason and the Patriot game drew 4 times the audience the Red Sox did. And the Red Sox are in a legitimate playoff race at this point with the hated Yankees. So I mean, that people are watching.
Yeah, they are.
I sat down and watched the game Saturday night, in spite of myself. The Jets and the Giants.
I
watched
think
it.
Everybody sits down for week 3 of the preseason because that's when the starters play the most. So that's when you feel you're going to get a decent look at what your team may look like when the season starts.
And then Bob tweets at us, it doesn't matter if the first game, the third game, or the 10th game, nobody cares about baseball until the playoffs. I really hate it. Look, Bob's a good tweeter. He tweets at us all the time. Right. I don't want to knock you, Bob, but I don't like it when people say, quote, unquote, nobody cares. You know what that means? That means you don't care.
You don't care. A lot of people care.
Lots of other people
Absolutely
do care, Bob. So don't assume because you don't care about something
nobody cares,
that nobody cares about something. Okay, Mike and Mike, so Shefty coming up, and at Stafford, the obviously a lot of reaction to the Stafford contract, and, our program is brought to you in part by DraftKings. Play free 1-week fantasy football at DraftKings. Just use the code Mike only at DraftKings.com. Is Stafford an illustration, Mike? And again, if you're just waking up, maybe you hadn't heard, Stafford's going to get a contract that'll make him the richest player in football. And just another in a succession of quarterbacks until time comes.
Until the next really good quarterback is available and to make that money.
And so there are some people taking their shots at Stafford. And look, it is what it is. Yeah. He isn't perfect.
No.
He isn't. There's a level of guys that are at the very, very top of that sport, right? There's a tier that he's not on. But I think he's on the next tier. So if the top tier has, I'm just making this up now, and I'm sure I'll leave somebody out, but if it has Brady on it, and it has Rodgers on it, and has Breeze on it, and has Ben on it, who am I forgetting? I mean, and some other people like that. Then there's another tier that's a much bigger one, and Stafford's on that. He's a guy you can definitely win with. And I guess the question I would ask, with related to DraftKings is, do you think some people overvalue him because he's such a fantasy stud?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like his fantasy numbers are so huge because that team doesn't ever run the ball.
They're going to throw it, and he's going to get you points. Absolutely right.
So, Russell Wilson won't put up numbers like Matt Stafford. Now, who would you rather have, Matt Stafford or Russell Wilson?
I'd rather have Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I probably would too.
As an overall quarterback, I think I would rather have Russell Wilson. That's why I get it from but I guess when I keep talking about the other side of this, I'm talking more from Detroit Lion fans. I can understand their frustration in saying, let's just blow the whole thing up and not screw our cap up with a quarterback who hasn't helped us win any more than anybody else. To which I would answer, you got to have a quarterback. He's only 29 years old. I'm just giving the other side of it. I have no problem with the signing at all. I get it. Now try and build a team around. But as we see, once a quarterback gets paid, it gets tougher to even build around. We saw that with Flacco. See it with Russell Wilson. Once you get paid, now Seattle's still up near the top, and they've done a good job, especially on the defensive side of the ball, keeping some of their pieces together. That's when, as a GM and the cap person of a team, you really earn your stripes. When you have to pay that quarterback, when you have to give out, maybe sometimes not even the quarterback, $100 million contract. Houston Texans, J.J. Watt. They're not paying a quarterback. Now, they paid Osweiler when he came in, but, God, they got Cleveland to take that contract.
My goodness.
I mean, it's still...
That's going to wind up being one of the great moves.
Stunning
great
to me.
Unheralded moves of all time was getting that contract
to get
off their books.
Out of that contract. Yep. That's exactly right. So whenever you have to deal with that monster contract, how you deal with everything else and how you build on that team. That's why you rarely see a team like the Patriots deal with a monster contract. And they would have to if Brady demanded one. Then it would get interesting if he, said, I'm the best quarterback. I should be paid like the best quarterback. He doesn't do that. So he, quote, unquote, helps his team, to which a lot of other people, I'm sure there are Lion fans, are saying, come on, Matt, you've gotten paid a ton of money already. Why don't you take a better deal that would help build the team around you? You're the linchpin to this team. Let's get a better team around you and let's win. And that's always a tough one. It shouldn't be, you got all the other. I guess it's your choice whether you want to do that or not, but I just don't like when it's held against somebody if they don't take less to help the team. You should be able to maximize your dollar. If you choose to take less, that's your choice, and that's fine, and maybe that's something you want to do. But that's really not how the system was supposed to be set up, to where, hey, you should make a ton of money, but you know what? Why don't you take way less so you can help this team?
Look, I mean, the Detroit Lions, again, have won one playoff game since the 50s. Stafford has had them in the playoffs Is it the last 2 seasons in a row, or is it 2 out of the last 3? 2 out of 3. They were in the playoffs last year. I mean, people talk about them like they were awful last year. They made the playoffs last year. All right, 2 years ago was the year they started like 0-6 and then worked their way all the way back to like 9-7 or something. They lost some ridiculous games. They had a bad call in the end zone. And then the year before that, they had a really, really good year and should have beaten Dallas in a playoff game and got a really bad call, I thought, that hurt them there.
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, they're a terrible franchise. Terrible. They've been awful for 60 years. Stafford's the best thing they have going for them, the best. I mean, in recent memory, the best things they've had going for them were Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and this guy.
Yeah, that's right.
So, in my opinion, you keep that guy, you pay him, and then you root for the best. All right, Mike and Mike, let's move on here. We got a situation in baseball. So, we opened our show this morning talking about, however, at a time where it feels almost unprecedentedly divided, our society does. Our nation every single day and every single night on cable news, everyone's yelling at each other, and it's just awful. That when we have these disasters, as we have right now in Houston, seeing everyone selflessly pitching in.
Yeah, without even thinking about it, just going to help.
Is so heartwarming. Yeah. And it is so inspirational, inspiring. And so now we have this thing going on in baseball where the Astros and the Rangers were supposed to be playing in Houston this week. And obviously they can't. And I don't know when they're going to be able to play baseball or any sport in Houston again. And that obviously is, in the big picture, not all that important. But so the Astros are supposed to play the Rangers at home this week, and they're supposed to play them again in Texas next month.
Right.
And so the Astros called up the Rangers and said, can we just flip-flop those series?
Let's just flip it.
Can we just play that series later and play this series now?
We'll go to Texas now, and then you'll come to our place next month.
And the Rangers said no. So that series is going to be played in Tampa instead. John Daniels, the general manager, and let's give all his reasoning. Let's be fair. Here's what he said. He said the Rangers offered to put on the games this week in Texas. They would have been willing to play them this week in Texas, but they still wanted next month's games in Arlington as well.
So 6 games all there.
Now he said they would have played the games with the rules that the Astros were the home team, so the Astros would have batted last and all of that,
and they would have got all the revenue.
They would have given them the home team's revenue from these games, so they weren't over the money.
Right.
But declined to swap home and home series because they didn't want a 4-city road trip in the last 16 days of the season. In discussing baseball reasons for the Rangers' perspective, Daniel said he was almost cringing, but fans and schedule all played a part, because he also said it wouldn't be fair
to the fans,
to the Rangers fans, the season ticket holders who had tickets for those games in Arlington in September and were counting on using them, and instead those games would be moved to Houston. So he said he was almost cringing as he made this announcement and as they made this decision.
It was for the fans, and then that the Rangers would not be home for the final 4 series of the season.
So I would ask you, Mike, because I think I want to be open-minded about this, because, look, I mean, baseball goes on, life goes on. These teams on some level have to worry about themselves. But, again, as we watch people jumping out of cars to help other people who are stranded, as we watch again, that picture I keep seeing in my mind of this woman carrying a dog on her shoulders through waist-high water. As you see all of this heroism that is going on before our eyes, there's a part of me that wants to say, a baseball team playing 4 series at the end of its season on the road in the big picture seems like an awfully small sacrifice when you consider the devastation that is going on. And when you look at J.J. Watt raising $1 million in 36 hours, and you look at all of the different things that are being done, and the Astros organization did give, I think, $4 million and all sorts of things. And there's a part of me that I want to hear your take on this before I sort of go off on this, in case someone can convince me that I'm missing something.
John Daniels, the Texas GM, made a business decision where a business decision didn't need to be made. Sometimes you just have to forget even bite your lip. Just say, let's just flop them. Let's just flip-flop them. Listen, we got to see in a month where we are in Houston as far as being able to have a game there and such. But I think that would have been my initial overriding thought. Yes, let's flip them so we can still get games. How great would it be to have a game? If people want to come to it in a month in Houston for what they're going through now, we could have a game there. So let's just flip-flop the series. I think that would have been the easy thing to do. he thought further about it. He thought about, listen, we always ask the fans to be thought about. And Daniel said he was thinking about the fans, the Rangers fans that had tickets for September, those games, which would now be in Houston. He was thinking of those fans. And obviously his team being away from home the last 4 series. Sometimes you need to put the business decision aside and just make the decision that's right. And in this case, I think it would have been the best decision to just say, hey, guys, we'll just flip-flop the series. You come to Texas now. We'll go to Houston in September. It's extraordinary circumstances right now, so we're not going to do anything that does anything to monkey wrench is a wrong word. Let's just make it simple. Let's just flip-flop it. You get games in Houston. I think that would be great in a month to be able to play some games in Houston, and let's just do that. So, yeah, I think while Daniels is going to say, he's thinking of his team and his fans, which is what you want your guy to do, I think there was a little bit of overthinking there to just take the easy solution and just flip-flop the series.
In case you're wondering about playoff ramifications, the Rangers, while they are 2 games under 500, are actually only 3 games out of the second wild card. There are, however, 5 teams ahead of them in that. The point is they are still in a playoff race.
Right.
And they can be looking ahead to that and saying we may be chasing a playoff position at the very end of our season. I understand that. It just feels to me like the optics of this, if you will, I hate that word. I'm going to try very hard to stop saying that because the optics are not what should be taken into account. You should be doing what's right. You shouldn't be doing things based upon how things look. But it certainly does look awful. It certainly does look awful to juxtapose the pictures that we're seeing on our television of the selfless acts of heroism with a general manager saying, it's probably not in the best interest of our team to have 4 consecutive series on the road at the end of the season. Again, our ticket holders, I do appreciate them watching out for their ticket holders, but I got to believe most of those ticket holders would get it. Like, these are extraordinary circumstances. Yeah, this is like a once-in-a-century kind of disaster that has befallen the Houston area. Is where the baseball game is being played really making that big of a difference? No, I understand that it isn't. But there's just something about saying, I have to put some things ahead of this right now that just does not pass the smell test.
Yeah.
So I'd be very curious to hear what people think. At us on Twitter, at ESPN Greeny, at ESPN Golick, at Mike and Mike. At us with your thoughts. Because there was a part of me that just wanted to go off on this today. And there's a part of me that is thinking, am I missing something here?
Right.
Like I was going to say, I think Major League Baseball needs to step in. And just say, no. What are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? Play these games in Houston next month.
Yeah.
Flip-flop this for crying out loud. I'm going to hold off on that until I see if there is something that I'm missing in this. So at us on Twitter with your thoughts on this decision. I just want to be open-minded on this in case there's some part of this that I'm missing.
I would like to hear it as well because it would just seem the easy thing to do. Yeah, we want you to have some games in Houston. The games, that's how it was set up to begin with, so let's just flip them and go there. And baseball, I don't think could force it. Again, a commissioner works for owners, so I think you could strongly suggest it. Say, hey, this we really should be thinking about doing it this way, and they're not going to. So Houston is not going to get these 3 games in Houston. They're going to go to Tropicana in St. Petersburg, and then they're going to go to Texas. So the 3 games will not be in Houston at all. Where I think a month from now, whether people want to go to them or not, because I don't know where everybody's going to be in a month. I mean, the build-out from this is certainly not going to be done in a month.
Right.
We know they are in for a long haul in Houston. But if you can get some games there and get some people that want to go to the games and have, do whatever you want to do there, make it a money raiser, something, more they can do, and it actually be in Houston, I think it would be nice to have those games in Houston. That would have been my initial thought. But I'm with you. Let's hear both sides of this thing, before, we rant and rave.
Yeah, and we will see if there is any additional perspective out there from Major League Baseball, if anyone there is listening, or from the Rangers organization that you want to share with us or our audience. I'd like to hear it because, again, just on its face, this thing to me does not pass the smell test at all. But I'm willing to have my mind changed by that. All right, Mike and Mike, we are, again, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest, Lake Shefty, coming up shortly on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. But right now, let's fill in the blank. Mike, the staff has put together a couple of sentences for us. They've left out a word here or there, and we can fill them in together. Mike and Mike, let's do it. Matthew Stafford, having led the Lions to 0 playoff wins, being the highest paid player in the NFL is
understandable. I mean, that's where we are in this league right now. It's about timing. It sometimes isn't about, if you're in the in the top 10, top 15 of quarterbacks, and you're a quarterback that team has and that team needs, and there's no other options out there, you're going to pay the guy. So this is how it works in the NFL, and I completely understand.
Yeah, and I would say it's about timing because he was going to get this contract at this time, and whoever comes up next is going to get the next one.
Right.
And they're just going to go sequentially. You pay the quarterback. If you have Matthew Stafford, you pay him, you keep him, you thank your lucky stars you found him, and then you try and win with him. That's what you do because otherwise you're a team that is scrambling like the Jets, who are our next fill-in-the-blank question.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets named Josh McCown as their starting quarterback. The number of games he will start this year is blank.
Wow. I don't see him starting them all. I see them getting another whether it's Bryce Petty. Now, we know the injury wasn't as serious as people thought.
I think Petty can play this week in the preseason. Yeah, I think.
Quite honestly, the Hackenberg experiment may be done. So I could see them possibly going to Petty. I'll say 10 games. I was going to say 8. So I'm in that 8 to 10 area. Before, if they're not playing well, I mean, I think you got to put one of the other guys on the field and let them go.
I mean, look, I think this is all going to be determined by injury because the Jets are going to be the worst team in the NFL this year, and Josh McCown, there's no question he's not going to be their quarterback whenever their future arrives. So I think you get him off the field as fast as you can. The point is, do Petty and Hackenberg get banged up? So the number of games that McCown will start, I'll put at 4. I don't see any reason in the world why when they're 0-4, why he would continue to be starting, and then you go from there. And the only reason he gets back in there, I would think, is if Hackenberg is just so bad that the veterans revolt, or if Petty gets hurt. So I'll put the number at 4. We'll go from there. Next, the Cavaliers scrapping plans for a $140 million renovation to Quicken Loans Arena is blank.
Businesslike, and I would say it on two. I don't know where they were because, again, the team hoped to host a future All-Star game. The league warned that if construction didn't start by next month, they wouldn't be considered. I don't know where they were. I don't know if they were going to have to rush it. Then that wouldn't be a smart business decision. And also, you know, Gilbert's been signing a lot of checks, hasn't he? He's been paying a lot of luxury tax, a lot of checks. So maybe there's something not all that bad to taking a breath and not spending some money for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's irrelevant. Quicken Loans Arena is a perfectly lovely place. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's things they could do with it that would make more money. But we've both been to games there.
No. But they want to host an All-Star game. They want to bring that in, and the league is saying that you need some renovations, and they need to start next month. So, but I wouldn't want to get rushed into that.
Me neither.
So that's why I said business-like. It's a business decision.
Next, the Yankees resting Aaron Judge for a couple of days is blank.
Good for Aaron Judge. I mean, let him take a step back. I mean, some players just want to play and just want to play through it. I don't know Aaron Judge to know if he would rather still be out there playing, but, you know, this is the feel from a manager saying, you know what, my guy needs to take a step back, you know, sit on the bench for a little bit and just kind of collect himself.
He's hitting 179 and struck out 65 times since the All-Star break. I think it's probably the right decision, and it's going to have a lot of people looking back at that home run derby, Mike, and again, it probably coincidental.
Right.
But there's no question that comes up again next year when the Derby rolls around. The Royals not scoring a run in their past 43 innings is blank.
Pathetic. I mean, it really is pathetic. I mean, that's horrible. The 1968 Chicago Cubs and the 1906 Philadelphia Athletics hold a major league record at 48 innings. So the Royals are in shouting distance of that in their next game. So we'll see. But that's just pathetic.
Yep, I would use the word depressing. If you're a fan of that team, watching them play, that has got to be depressing. And that is fill in the blank.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Shefty is standing by and is ready to go with a lot of news out there in the NFL. Good morning, Shefty.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. We're doing well, not quite as well as Matthew Stafford. Let's start there. 5-year extension. You've reported it's $92 million in guaranteed money. Tell us about how this thing got to where it is and where it stands.
Well, a few things to keep in mind here. Number one, the conversations for this deal started at the owners' meetings back in March. They went all the way up to this week, and I happened to be in Detroit on Friday and could tell that the two sides were getting to a critical point. The season's coming close. It's about to open. They're not far apart on numbers. They continue to work at it over the weekend. And then last night, Matthew Stafford signed off on a deal that basically is a record-setting landmark deal in so many different ways. You mentioned the $92 million in guaranteed money, $27 million a year average, which beats Derek Carr, who got his deal recently this summer by an average of $2 million per year, $50 million signing bonus. And if you look at all the money in all the years, it's just mind-boggling to see the numbers where they are and how high they are. Now, if you look at it going forward, to me, this expands the quarterback market and makes it such that players like Drew Brees and Kirk Cousins, who are headed into the last year of their contract, are staring straight at the possibility of becoming $30 million a year kind of quarterbacks. And Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers, who are on the top of their game and don't have a long way to go in their deal, they're looking at also similar numbers. And I think the issue now is Matthew Stafford's a really good quarterback, but he's not the best quarterback in the game. And we're seeing the best quarterback in the game be overshadowed by guys like Matthew Stafford here. So we saw this in the offensive line with Brandon Linder of Jacksonville, a guy that a lot of people don't even know, becomes the highest-paid center. Now you're seeing Matthew Stafford become the highest-paid quarterback. And when the highest-paid guy at that position is not the best player in the league at that position, it creates a little bit of a discrepancy.
So as far as the whole deal, I don't believe Brees is going to beat that. Brees is going to be 38, 39 years old, so he may get a shorter deal, but for a lot of money.
A little bit different circumstances.
But let's go to Cousins. Does Cousins get a deal as good or better than Stafford's?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt in my mind he will. And, again, you look at it, and the numbers on Stafford again, he's going to make, in the first year, $51 million. He's going to make $67 million in 2 years. He's going to make $87 in 3. So the guarantees are big, the numbers are big, but Kirk Cousins is leveraged like no one else ever has been in the league. 2 years of a franchise tag. Nobody's taking that risk at the quarterback position. He's bet on himself, and he's 1 year away from winning in a big way. If Kirk Cousins hits the open market, what does a team like Jacksonville, New York, San Francisco, the Los Angeles Rams, if Goff doesn't work out, what do one of those teams pay Kirk Cousins on the open market? He gets to basically name his price. And that price, I would imagine, would be somewhere around $30 million a year.
Yeah, he'll get a bidding war, which none of these other guys ever got to free agency, so they didn't get a chance to get. Okay, so there's Stafford. And again, for those of you just joining us, my opinion firmly. Doesn't make any difference if he's the first best or the eighth best. When you have a guy who's as good as he is, you pay him. Whatever it takes to keep him, and you win with him. That's my opinion. All right, next. Zeke Elliott appeal hearing today at NFL headquarters. What is your expectation relative to the hearing itself? And then if it goes the way a lot of people expect, which is that it doesn't get really markedly changed by Harold Henderson, where does the union go from there?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. And again, I think the issue here is you have to find a violation of the procedure. Tom Brady didn't have, in his eyes and the union's eyes, proper notice of the punishment. He was able to take that to court. Now, they need to find some flaw. And I guess there are some ways you could say, well, they didn't allow Zeke Elliott's notes to be entered into the appeal hearing. There are little things that they could do, depending on how the appeal goes, that they could do several things to delay it. And that'll become the issue that they will tackle after they hear the result of the appeal. And again, to your point, Greeny, I think most people don't think this appeal is going to be reduced much, if at all. I think that's the best and safest way to say it right now, right? Like maybe he gets a game knocked off, maybe, but I think the league is intent upon sending a very stern and clear message that none of this behavior, whether it happened or not, is going to be tolerated. And so let's just assume it stays at 6 games. Zeke Elliott could fight it. I think it's been proven in the past, we saw in the Brady case, that chances are he's not going to have a very good case. The circumstances are different. Deflating balls and domestic violence, I mean, it's laughable to even compare the two of those incidents. But nevertheless, that's where we are at this point in time. And so he could challenge it, and maybe he will challenge it. But ultimately, I think that big suspension's coming, and it's just a question of when he's going to want to pay the piper.
Yeah, how quickly will Harold make this decision? Obviously, they need to know before week 1. So if the hearing is today, is it by the end of the week that we'll have a decision?
That's my sense of it. That's my sense of it, that we will get a quick decision. Look, keep in mind this week that every roster is in transition. Next week is Labor Day. The season opens a week from this Thursday. Everybody's on a tight time crunch, and I'm sure it'll be a lot for Harold Henderson to sift through. But my guess, and it's just a guess, would be that we get something by the end of the week, early next week. But again, with every team having to make roster moves, I'm sure Dallas wants an answer because they're going to have to cut down to 53 players from 90 by 4 o'clock on Saturday. And so when you do that, let's just say Elliott's on the roster. They may have to cut an extra player. They're not going to want to do that right now. No team wants to have to cut an extra player at this time of the year.
So I'm just trying to play this thing out in my mind. If the thing doesn't get knocked down, or let's say it only goes from 6 to 5, and the Cowboys want to try and take that, or the Union, more to the point, want to take that
Let's
to
leave
court.
it at 6. Let's leave it at 6.
Leave it at 6. Okay, that's the likeliest outcome. I'm with you. So now you want to take this thing to court, in which case he'll be eligible, most likely, to play Week 1 pending a hearing. But it would feel to me like the best, if you're going to ultimately lose him, the best time to lose him is the first 6 games of the season, right? Not for some decision to be made in the middle of the year where all of a sudden he's now suspended starting in November rather than the beginning of the year. Strategically speaking, if you resign yourself to the idea that he's going to be suspended, isn't it best to lose him, as the Patriots did last year with Brady, at the beginning of the year, know when he's coming back, and pick up whenever he returns and start from there? Do you follow what I'm saying, or does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I see exactly what you're saying. Again, I was told that they have to see how the appeal goes before they make any decisions about whether they're going to challenge it, when they want to challenge it. And I guess they could always there can be things that could be done to delay or stay the suspension pending that proceeding. But it's just too early to tell right now. And until you know how the appeal goes, Zeke Elliott and his team can't attack the appeals decision because there is no decision right now. So we don't know how that's going to go. So we're speculating. We're really getting ahead of ourselves. I get it. We're going to do that. My guess is, they could challenge it. The chances are he's not going to be challenged. You might as well just take your medicine and get it over with. I think we'd all like to see something like that, but it's not our life, and it's not our paycheck, and it's not our situation, so we don't get to make that decision.
It's Adam Schefter with the very latest, as always. Thank you, Schefter. Have a great day.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, here we are. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, they'll include Stu Gotts down in Miami. He'll be with us in just a couple of minutes here. Golick, we just took a look at the Texans schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They will play their preseason game Thursday night at Dallas instead of home in Houston. That was an easy switch.
Easy switch, yes.
You would have thought the baseball switch would be an easy one, too. Maybe not so much. Then they are home Week 1 of the NFL season, Sunday, September 10th. That's a week from Sunday. Then they have back-to-back road games. They play actually that first Thursday night game at Cincinnati. Then they play at New England. So they're not home again until October 1st against the Titans. So we're looking at, from now, 11 days? Mm-hmm. From the pictures that we've seen and everything of Houston, I don't know. I'm certainly the furthest thing in the world from an expert on this. Do they look like they'll be ready to host a pro football game in 11 days?
I obviously have no idea about that, but it is against Jacksonville.
Yes.
It's a division opponent, so could they just flip it? The second time they play Jacksonville is December 17th.
The second to last week of the season.
Put this one in Jacksonville, and then December 17th, put it in Houston. Could it be that simple?
Well, you would have thought it would be that simple in baseball, and it didn't turn out to be. But that does feel like a possibility because you would then not have to host a football game in Houston until October 1st. Now, I've read a lot of people saying for civic pride and everything, it would be great to have a home game.
And I get
Maybe
that.
it would.
Yeah. The one thing I guess you would like is how quickly they can make that decision so then you can let Jacksonville, they can then prepare for a game at home and do what they need to do.
Well, listen, I don't know anything about anything when it comes to this, but it feels like in order to put on a football game, you have to have a ton of police. And
that's the thing. It's not just the players showing up and playing in the stadium. It's so many ancillary things that they're way too busy doing other things to have to worry about a football game.
That's what I think, and it would seem to me that will still be the case in a week and a half. So that was why I looked at it, and I think maybe it's a blessing that first game is a division opponent.
Right, where they can flip
it. Becomes an easy, you don't have to start worrying about teams' bye weeks and all of that. You just flip-flop the home games. So if they need to do that, and maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be just fine to host a game there in a week and a half. But if they need to, it feels like they could. A lot of the Twitter reaction, again, here on the Rangers' decision Chris Thompson tweets, I don't mind the Rangers' decision at all. Even took the burden off the Astros to get the games in Houston next month. Real question is, why didn't Houston agree?
Is it a burden? I mean, do we know that it's a burden? We don't know what it's going to be in a month. I mean, maybe it would be great to have a game in Houston next month. Maybe it would be great to have the 3 games, to have people be able to go to the stadium. That's the thing. We don't know what it's going to be like in a month. But I don't know if we have to go to burden.
Sarah tweets, the business decision is not the best decision. Here's an easy fix. Donate the revenue from all 6 games to the Houston relief funds. Look, all these, I mean, the Astros, I believe, donated $4 million.
And none of that's not going to stop. There's going to be more that gets donated and such. So there's certainly ways to do that, yes.
So let's see. That's a little bit of the reaction from our audience. Let's see what Stu Gatz thinks from the Dan Le Batard Show, which, of course, follows us every single day here on ESPN Radio Coast to Coast. Stu, you've heard the conversation here this morning about the Rangers basically denying the Astros' request to just flip-flop these home series from now and the one they have coming up in September, and the reasons behind it. Again, for those just joining us, the Rangers GM saying they wanted to protect their own season ticket holders and that they didn't want to have 4 consecutive road series at the end of their year. Stu Gatz, as far as you're concerned, did the Rangers make the right or the wrong decision?
Good morning, guys. The absolute wrong decision. Greeny, I felt you when you first brought it up in the 7 o'clock hour wanting to just completely rip and annihilate the Rangers and John Daniels. And you didn't go there, so I'll do it for you. They should be ashamed of themselves. It is such a terrible job by the Texas Rangers. Forget about the business decision, John Daniels. Do what's right for the city of Houston, for the people of Houston, and put baseball aside for just a minute. I'm going home every single night. I'm not watching sports. I'm not watching anything political. I am watching this. And it is heartbreaking, and you are seeing acts of kindness and people doing amazing things. And the Texas Rangers are going to put business ahead of doing the right thing. That's completely absurd. How about this? Do whatever the people of Houston want and do whatever the Houston Astros want, and you have to acquiesce and you have to do a better job than put business ahead of real life and what's going on in that city. Because what's going on in that city, Greeny, you said it earlier, happens once every century. It is heartbreaking. And if the Astros need to play, flip-flop series and the Rangers need to help them out. It is that simple. There is no debating this, whether or not it's a good decision or not. It is the absolute wrong decision. John Daniels and the Rangers need to rethink this and need to do a better job.
To the point, would Rob Manfred, should he step in? Can they? Or is it just something that, because he works for the owners, that he can only just strongly suggest that they change their mind, if it's still possible?
Mike, he can do whatever he wants. The fact that he would have to step in on a decision like this, it's such an easy decision that I can't believe Rob Manfred will even be faced with, maybe having to say something, maybe having to step in. It is such an easy decision. But yes, if John Daniels can't figure out, and the Rangers organization can't figure out, grown adults can't figure out how to do the right thing and what the right thing is, then yes, I guess they need Rob Manfred in Major League Baseball, the guy to step in and show them the way and show them and tell them, hey, here's the right thing to do by the city of Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking. I just opened up my Twitter reaction. I got people tweeting me. Neil Willie tweets, my wife and I are opening up our apartment to the victims for 16 days for free. 2 to 3 days at a time via Airbnb. I mean, everyone in the world, everyone in the country at least, is doing everything that we can, whatever we can think of, whatever we can do. And in some cases, even if it's just sort of sending, positive vibes down there, for anyone to be putting anything else ahead of that just struck me as ridiculous. And that's why I wanted to hear if there was another side to this. And Stu, I am completely in agreement with you. There is no other side to this. There's no, how much of a difference would it actually make? Any difference it makes is worth doing. You just say, here's what you need. Okay, we'll do that for you because of the extraordinary circumstances you find yourself in. And I certainly hope that John Daniels and the Rangers never find themselves needing a favor from anybody else around the sport, because they certainly will not have earned one.
It's a great point, Greeny. It really is. I mean, you have people who are being uprooted, people who have lost their homes, people who can't be found, people who are trying to find loved ones, people trying to save their pets, and you're worried about playing 4 consecutive road series at the end of the series? Please, give me a break. I mean, sir, in the grand scheme of things, think how petty and think how small that is. It's just a bad job. Greeny, that was very well said. It's just a bad job, and I'm glad I got you to the point where there is no other side. There's only one right thing to do here, and that's to help the city of Houston out and help the Astros out. Well, who cares if they have to play 4 road series towards the end of the season? In the grand scheme of things, where people are losing their house and can't find their loved ones, please get over it. Move on.
And I would assume, Mike, just to sort of finish up this topic and move on to something else, no one really can do anything about this, right? I mean, this is the team's decision. They're going to play the games. It's today, right?
It's 11 hours away, so nothing's going to change.
It's tonight, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
11
now.
hours. They're in Florida. They're playing in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, they're playing in the Rays field.
Yeah, so they're playing there. So it's not going to get changed, and this is because the Rangers.
So this will just stand. I mean, this is the decision that has been made. Just let it be known. Let the record show that this was the decision that the Rangers made. That in the interest of protecting their own season ticket holders, 95% of whom would have said, oh, yeah, just do it. If it's better for the people in Houston, just do it. We'll figure it out on the back end. And in the interest of keeping their team, which is 2 games under 500, from having to play 4 consecutive road series at the end of their season, they decided not to help out the Astros in what would have been the easiest possible way
thing in the world.
to do it.
Yeah.
Just let the record show that was the decision and that now it stands.
It stands.
And for the 5% of the fans, guys, for the other 5% of the season ticket holders who don't understand, revoke their season tickets because I don't want those people rooting for my team anyway.
Yeah,
okay?
let's hope it wouldn't even be that. Let's hope it would be near 100%. All the stuff we're seeing in Houston of people helping other people, you would think that Texas Ranger fans would understand that as well. You really would. So, all right, Stu, let's move on to Matthew Stafford. $50 million signing bonus, $92 million guaranteed, the highest paid quarterback in the league. Your thoughts?
And I can't believe, Mike, I heard you say this earlier, that people in Detroit, fans of the Lions, are upset by this. Try being a fan of the New York Jets and check out that quarterback situation. I mean, we would do anything to have Matthew Stafford as our quarterback. Listen, it's just the way it is. He's the highest paid guy in the NFL and the history of the NFL for now until the next quarterback comes around. It's going to be interesting to see what Aaron Rodgers gets, what Breeze gets, what Kirk Cousins gets. I heard you discussing that with Adam Schefter. But they've been to the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 years. He's 29 years old. I don't want to hear Lions fans complaining about it. He deserves the money. It's just where we're at with quarterbacks. It's a quarterback-driven league. We all know that. And, again, he's only going to be the highest-paid player in NFL history for a short amount of time until the next guy comes up. But, listen, I don't want to hear from Lion fans. Like, I know they've had a tough run, just like Jet fans and maybe some other fan bases, Cleveland Browns. But you have Matthew Stafford. You have a quarterback who's 29. He's in his prime. He's really, really good. If you're bad, he's certainly not the reason that you're bad. And I just don't want to hear from it. You know, on a day where the Jets have announced, Greedy, I know you saw this over the weekend, there was a headline where less than 2 weeks before the season starts, all 5 of the Jets' offensive line jobs are up for grabs. I don't want to hear a single peep out of anyone from Detroit when the Jets are trying to figure out who's going to start on their offensive line at all 5 spots. It's the first time in the history of the NFL we have a team that has all 5 spots up for grabs on their offensive line less than 2 weeks before the season. Don't want to hear from Lions.
You two are the wrong people to ask anything about anybody complaining about their team because you guys are bitter Jet fans.
We're the right people because I understand, he and I understand the perspective of what it's like not to have a guy like Matthew Stafford. The Jets are tanking. So in this particular season, they're not a good example. But any other year, the Lions have been in the playoffs 3 of the last 6 seasons, 2 of the last 3 seasons. They're 36 and 111 since 2001 when Matthew Stafford doesn't play. So he's not the problem. They've won 1 playoff game since the 50s. They're the worst. Right now, if you're in Cleveland, you should be looking at the Lions and saying, well, at least we're not them. They're the worst franchise in the sport by far. Stafford is the best thing that has happened to them since Barry Sanders retired. And the notion that you're complaining that you've decided to keep him is, to me, Stu, is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, it really is. And Golick is right, Greedy. Like, we know how it feels. Greedy, I don't know. Have we ever had a quarterback that's as good as Matthew Stafford? Was it Joe Namath? Because I'm not even certain Joe Namath was as good as Matthew Stafford. Like, have we ever had a quarterback
I mean, Namath would be the one. I mean, Pennington would not be. And Pennington is the second best quarterback in franchise history. And when he was healthy, he was actually very good. But the reality is Stafford is Stafford on terrible teams. They haven't had anybody run for 100 yards since 2013. Their rushing numbers, I had them sent to me a little while ago. They are every single year in the bottom 5 in the league in rushing. They had Ndamukong Suh there for a little while, so their defense was pretty good. He has lifted bad team. Here they are. This is the Lions' rushing ranks in Matthew Stafford's career. This is where they have been in rushing. 30th, 32nd, 28th, 17th, 23rd, 29th, 23rd, and 24th. To be clear, there are 32 teams in the league. They don't run. They don't play defense. They've got him. Before they had him, they were 0-16. Since they got him, they've been in the playoffs 3 out of 6 years. That to me, it's not even any more complicated than that.
Listen, what do you want me to tell you? Detroit Lion fans are ready. Some are ready to start to rebuild. you're two guys that are tough to answer that because you've been in rebuild mode forever.
Well, and so have they, Mike, but that's the confusing part about Lion fans being upset. They've been in rebuilding mode forever. So what are they complaining about? They have a quarterback. There are many teams who don't have one. The Jets, the 49ers, the Jacksonville Jaguars,
they're
they
saying,
have one.
Stu,
and they
they're
want to
saying
rebuild?
they've had this quarterback for 8 years, and it's gotten them nothing. It's gotten them to the playoffs a couple of times, but they would like to go further than that. So instead of using all the cap space, they're saying on someone who hasn't gotten them to the promised land, let's start over. And if we start over, maybe we get a better draft pick, which is what you guys talk about all the time. When your team is bad, just stink then so we can get a higher draft pick. So maybe that's something they're thinking about doing to start to rebuild again. I'm just...
Yeah, but the reason I want those draft picks, Mike, is because I want to keep taking a quarterback because the Jets can't get it right. The Lions actually got it right at that position. Now go build around them. Get it right at every other position,
now
and maybe have a team.
And their point is going to be a little more tougher to build around them with a guy making $27 million a year. Go see the Baltimore Ravens after they won the Super Bowl. And you know what happened? You know what happened with Detroit? Detroit didn't win a Super Bowl and then paid their quarterback. At least Baltimore won a Super Bowl and then paid their quarterback, and they haven't been very good ever since. That's their. I'm just telling you. I agree with the signing. I think they absolutely should have signed him and kept him. But I can't sit here and say I disagree with a Detroit Lion fan who's thinking about the other side of that. I'm not in their shoes, and I see what they've seen for the last 8-9 years.
And I would tell them, try to build around Josh McCown. Go ahead. Have fun with that.
As I said, you two are the wrong ones to ask.
You know, Stu, I think we've accomplished something here because we have Golic actually screaming against the position that he takes on the topic.
Yeah.
He actually agrees with us.
Oh, I do agree with you.
We have him yelling at us.
I do agree with you, but for you guys just to put off anybody, especially a Detroit Lion fan, to not thinking the other way, I don't agree with it.
I consider this a win.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. It's what I always envisioned for this segment, Greeny. It took us a while to get there, but it's what I always envisioned for this segment, that we convince Golic that he's wrong about something that he's passionately arguing about.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Stu Gatz is with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Let's do Beef Stew. Stu, do you have more beef with the people who are saying the Mayweather-McGregor fight was good, or with those like your friend Mr. Lebitard who said it was awful?
I have been doing the show with Dan for 15 years, and yesterday we all learned together that he is boxing purist guy. Like all of a sudden he cares about the artistry of boxing. Man, I don't care. I was entertained, guys. I spent just under $100 like everyone else, and I was entertained. It was a good fight. And listen, call me a sucker, call me naive. I don't care. If Floyd Mayweather carried Conor McGregor through 9.5 rounds, if indeed he could have knocked McGregor out whenever he felt like knocking McGregor out, I do not care. I was entertained. I had moments in that fight sitting there on the couch with my wife, with a couple of friends, where during those first 3 to 4 rounds, I looked over to them and I said, hey, McGregor might pull this off. This is incredible. I had my moment. I had a good time. It lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, and McGregor was a lot more prepared and a better boxer than we all thought he was going to be. I don't care how we arrived at me having a good time. I had a good time. I got my money's worth. I don't want to hear from boxing purists like Lebitard and everyone else what a bad fight that was. I paid for Mayweather and Pacquiao, and I paid for this fight. And I had an infinitely better time watching Mayweather-McGregor than Mayweather running around afraid, having Pacquiao chase him all over the ring. I had a much better time this past Saturday night. It was a great fight. I'll tell you what, if they hook up for a rematch, I'll spend another $99.99. In fact, I'd spend more if I had to.
I agree 100% with you, 1,000%. Though there'll never be a rematch, so I don't think we'll have to worry about that. Anybody expecting the sweet science in that fight, then you were barking up the wrong tree. We expected that in Pacquiao and Mayweather, and we got Drek. So I was completely entertained as well. Quickly, before we get to the last beef, as far as a lot of people jumping on Conor McGregor, that he was like afterward, like he almost won, out partying, smiling in the locker room, not like having a care in the world. Me, I had zero problem with it at all. What did you think?
I was totally fine with it because he won. I said yesterday on our show that no one won while losing. No one won so much while losing than Conor McGregor. Everyone won. I mean, Mayweather actually won. McGregor won because he went a lot longer than people thought. I had no issues with how he acted after the fight because he won. And how would you react if you won over $100 million and your reputation went up the way his did on Saturday night? So I have no issues with him celebrating, partying. He went out of his element, went to a different sport. It took some guts to do that. He did a very good job. And really, in the grand scheme of things, when you think about it, the big winner from that night, even while losing, was Conor McGregor. So I'm fine with how he acted after the fight.
Mike and Mike Stugotz is with us. One more. Beef Stew, do you have more beef with the Cavaliers trading for Isaiah Thomas or for the Cavaliers now asking for more because Isaiah Thomas is hurt?
Oh, this is easy. I mean, the Cavs asking for more. They knew what they were getting when they traded for Isaiah Thomas. They knew he had the hip injury. And listen, it's a good trade because, for the now, it probably gets the Cavaliers back to the NBA Finals. And if Isaiah Thomas can't play for, let's say, a quarter of the season, half the season, who cares? He'll be healthy for the playoffs. That's when you need him anyway. Really, what the Cavaliers wanted out of that deal, and they got Jay Crowder to boot, really what they wanted was that pick, the Nets pick next year, which is going to be a top 3, top 4 pick. If I'm the Boston Celtics today, guys, I'm telling them, listen, I'm not waiting until tomorrow. COB. We're not adding one more thing. We're not adding Tatum. We're not adding Brown. We're not adding another pick. The deal is the deal. You have till the close of business today to accept our deal. We're not adding a single thing. And I think the Cavs are going to take it. They'd be stupid not to. What they wanted was that pick. No one's going to offer them more. And, they knew what they were getting with Isaiah Thomas. So the Cavs, to go back asking for more at this point is just ridiculous. And if you're the Celtics, you do not cave in. You just sit there and say the deal's the deal. That's it.
Totally agree. And so to finish up this conversation, I'm going to throw a little trivia question out there.
Okay.
For all the people who are complaining about the Lions signing Matthew Stafford to all this money, okay? Outside of Matthew Stafford, name all the quarterbacks in Detroit Lions history who led that team to multiple 10-win seasons. Stafford has done it. Name the Lions quarterbacks who have led that team to more than 10-win seasons.
Nobody.
That's correct. It has never happened. No one else ever did. The answer is 0 other people.
Remember,
we've already done it by not speaking.
I've done this for 18 years. Don't yell. Just because you yell louder doesn't make it right. Don't yell.
Yes, but I'm amplifying my point by amplifying my voice. The obvious reality is that Matthew Stafford is the best thing that has happened to the Detroit Lions since Barry Sanders. And the notion that you'd want to run him out of there so you can get a high draft pick, so maybe you could draft someone who's as good at Stafford and probably won't be, is so ludicrous, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, it's great. Like, Grady, right now, would you give the Jets next year first-round pick for Matthew Stafford? Because I would.
Of course. Are you kidding me?
See, that's
why
of course anyone would do that. Who wouldn't do that?
Let's just stop with you two, because anytime it's brought up, the first thing is brought up, the Jets. Just stop.
But they're just an example of a team without a quarterback. But insert like 8 or 9 or 10 other teams. Jacksonville. Make it Jacksonville. Why would Jacksonville pay Matthew Stafford? He became an unrestricted free agent.
A lot of money. They may pay Kirk Cousins a lot of money.
I'll take it one step further. I'll give the Jets next 5 first-round picks for Matthew Stafford. The next 5. I'll give the next 5 for Matthew Stafford.
Oh, my God. Are we done yet?
Oh, my goodness. All right, that's Stugotz. You'll see and hear him in a couple hours, as every day, with the Dan Le Batard Company. Thank you, Stu. Stugotz with us here.
All right, guys.
This worked out well. Here's the beauty of that. We just got you yelling about something you don't believe.
Oh, I don't. No, at all. But I can understand for fans that have sat there for 8 years and have not gotten to the playoffs a couple of times and have now said, okay, our cap space is completely gone to do anything. Where are we now?
The best of Mike and Mike.
The Golden Boy who is promoting Triple G and Alvarez on September 16th. A lot to get to. Good morning, Oscar. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Thank you. How are you?
Good. We're doing great. Okay, so let's go through as much as we can in the time that we have here. Last week, you called out Mayweather and McGregor, saying they were disrespecting the sport of boxing. I'm curious, with the fight going the way it did Saturday night, did that change your perspective on it at all?
No, I think Saturday night was a fraud. I think look, I mean, I just feel that boxing and the UFC, it's 2 different sports. I mean, look, just because one is playing with a basketball is not going to go out there and throw a football. It's just 2 different sports. I just thought it was a fraud.
And so I guess on that note, with your company, Golden Boy Promotions, you're promoting this fight, which means you want people to buy this fight. They had a lot of people buy that fight. I'm sure you would like that many people to buy this fight. So from that respect, from the business side of it, I mean, you'd have to say it was pretty darn successful. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, it was amazing. It was incredible. I mean, people bought into it, and look, what I didn't like was, stories coming out on Mayweather where he tried to bet on himself in the 10th round, and guess what? He stopped him in the 10th round. So I just felt that yes, it was successful. It was great, and I'm actually glad that a lot of people tuned in. A lot of MMA fans tuned in to witness what a boxer is all about. Look, Mayweather's a pure boxer. He's great at what he does. McGregor is an amazing MMA fighter. He's great at what he does. I just think that it's just two different sports, and we should just stick to each other's sport.
Fair enough. Now, having watched it, however, how would you assess McGregor in the ring? How would you assess what you saw from him Saturday?
Well, I actually didn't watch it because I was promoting Miguel Cotto on HBO that Saturday night. But
right.
From what I heard, it was awkward. Look, a fighter trains all his life. A boxer trains all his life. For instance, I was 4 years old when I started boxing. I throw punches from different angles. I throw punches. My footwork, everything is different. The UFC, the MMA fighters, they throw their different punches. They throw from different angles. They do what they do, and they're the best at it. Boxers we're the best at what we do, and they're the best at what they do. And I think it's just two different sports, and we should stick to each other's sport.
That being said, again, because it's promotions and because it could become big money, we were just talking about it. If Mayweather is done, we think McGregor would go back to MMA unless there's another big payday somewhere. So it's fun because we can, doing hypotheticals. The winner of this bout on September 16th, what if that winner went against McGregor in a pay-per-view? A, how big could that pay-per-view be, and how would McGregor do against either one of these fighters?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to be part of it or be involved because, look, as much money as there is in some type of fight like that, look, for me it was, the money's great, yes, but it's never about the money. It's about the legacy. It's about the fight. It's about to see who is the very best. And September 16th, you're going to have the two best boxers on the planet trying to see who the very best is. And guess what? You're going to get an incredible, brutal knockout, a great, amazing fight against two great boxers. So I wouldn't want to see an MMA fighter go up against a boxer anytime soon.
Mike Oscar De La Hoya is with us. Both of us agree, and both of us think that actually what happened Saturday night might work out very well for you. It might wind up lifting the pay-per-view, give people an expectation or give people a sense of your expectation for that fight. We know they're both knockout guys. What is your expectation for what we'll see in a few weeks, not only in the ring but outside the ring?
Well, I think we're going to see an incredible boxing fight. I think we're going to see marvelous Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns all over again, action-packed, and that's exactly what I'm worried about. I just want the fans to get to witness an incredible fight. That's what boxing is all about, a pure, amazing fight. And I strongly feel that Canelo Alvarez and Triple G, if they don't know how to take a step going backwards, it's going to be bombs away on Saturday night, September 16th. And guess what? The fans are going to enjoy an amazing boxing fight.
Oscar, Greeny and I, we were just talking yesterday with Al Michaels about that Hagler-Hearns fight, and we were talking about when we were growing up and where boxing was and some of the names involved in boxing. In your mind, where is boxing right now? Is it in a good place, and if not, how can it get into a better place?
Well, it is in a great place. We're still generating amazing ratings. We're the pay-per-views, yes, are through the roof. Obviously, look, Saturday night's fight with Mayweather and McGregor was in a boxing ring, and the people, if you put the best fighting the best in one ring, people are going to watch, and that's exactly what we're going to get on Saturday night, September 16th, with Canelo and Triple G. It's a matter of putting in the best against the best. And that's exactly why I became promoter in the first place, is to make sure that the fans get the best fighting the best and witness the best fights possible. So that's look, for me, look, boxing is not a money grab for me. Boxing is a sport that is serious, just like the UFC, just like the MMA. It's a serious sport. You get hurt in there, and I just feel that the fans deserve better. The fans deserve to watch the best against the best.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you Oh, wait! Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea!
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people! Here we go!
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.